Hi folks, welcome back to the Horde. Well, let me show you what I've been up to. I got like a lot of stuff going on all at the same time, and I've been asked some questions, so I'm going to try to answer some questions and go through some of the stuff I've been up to all at the same time. I think you guys are familiar with this shed. It's right outside my garage door here. Right, there's the garage door. Here's what's in here, by the way. Right, 3 ATCs, my Baja Warrior that I put the torque converter on, that looks like it leaked out a bunch of its oil. And there's also this Speed Defies gravity bike. And I think it's an 04. See the date of manufacture. So there you are. My Speed Defies Gravity. I bought this thing at a car show a few years ago, and I got it running, and first and second gear were good, but if you put it in third and you put some strain on it, it would occasionally skip, and fourth gear would skip a lot, and the Kickstarter wouldn't work. It was bound up. So what I did is I pulled the engine off and I put the Lifan on here. This was 110 cc's, and I put the 125 Lifan on it. And I get a lot of questions about wiring this thing. Right here is the wire harness wire bundle coming from the engine, the stuff with the black tape on it, and then this goes into the wiring harness there. See these two wires here, white and yellow? See the way they're covered on the end? That means there's output coming from these wires. Basically they are females, but just in case they touch something, right, the metal will not touch because it's covered, right? These are females. These are the two wires that come from the stator that are AC power that's eventually going to go to your battery. These two go to the regulator. Notice there's no headlight on this thing, no battery, no starter. So notice they're not hooked up. And notice they're floating. They're covered. They're not doing anything. There are 3 other wires, or 4 other wires, coming from this bike, and we'll look at a couple of others. Red and black, this one right here, right, red and black by my thumb. That's the power coming from the stator that goes to your CDI unit. This one, blue and white, right, that comes from your pulse generator, goes to the CDI unit. The green, that goes to the CDI unit, it's ground, and you got this green and red that kind of actually goes with these 2 wires. This is a 2-phase alternator on this thing, and the way it works is I just bought these up in P&D surplus. Those 2 wires, the white one and the yellow one, notice these are male plugs. They would plug right in there. Notice this black and white wire. This would go with that green and red. It's ground. Notice the red wire coming out of here, the way it's covered. This is positive going to the battery. So the positive battery here, this goes to ground, and the ground or the negative on the battery would go there, and you can see where the other 2 wires hook up. And then if you want to hook up a starter, right, basically you have one of the hot wires comes off the battery, goes to the one side of a starting solenoid, off the other side of the starting solenoid it goes to the starter. The starter itself is grounded because it's bolted to the bike, and then you have the coil for the starting relay. When you put positive to the coil, that pulls the starting relay in, which now the starting relay is a closed circuit, which makes your starter go round and round. I'm always getting questions, and particularly when I'm asked a question and the wiring layout does not make sense to me, I'll ask more questions. And a lot of times the answer I get back, I don't get an answer back that makes sense, right? I'll ask, are there 2 bundles of wires coming from the engine? And the response will come, nope, only 1 bundle of wires. And I'll go, good, only 1 bundle of wires. And then I'll ask, what are the colors on the other wires? And you don't answer that question, which makes it hard for me to continue, right? If I was looking at this bundle of wires, this is just a 70cc China, 72cc China, right? I got my green. What is that, guys? Ground, right? Got my white, got my yellow. Where do they go? Right, those 2. Where do they go? They go to this guy, right? And in this case, just looking at the wires, I could tell these 2, right, the green and whites, I know that they're going to be the AC in. Why? Because red is positive, and the black and white with that kind of attachment on it would go to ground, right? Where these 2 expect an input. So a lot of times, depending on the connectors that are on the ends of the wires, you can kind of figure things out. Like, given that, once again, these are covered, I'm expecting I'm getting an output. Given that it doesn't matter, it's green, which tells me it's ground, but it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if ground shorts to ground, right? Not a problem. Given that this is covered, it's providing a signal. Given that this one's covered, it's providing a signal. This is providing the pulsar signal. This is providing the AC to run the CDI unit, and these 2, the white and the yellow, are providing the signals that would run the which is power coming off the stator, which would go to your voltage regulator, right? And eventually it would charge your battery. So a lot of times, depending on if the ends of the wires are covered or not, you know if it's a signal coming from this side, right? You don't want any of these shorting, right? Because you're shorting AC against ground. That's not a good thing. You don't want this shorting, right? You don't want any wires really shorting. The only one you don't care about is here. So a lot of times, by the way the wires are covered, the young man, I assume it's a young man, who's telling me that he's got 2 wires coming off his Lifan engine that are both blue and white. Well, blue and white, once again, on that engine, on this Lifan here, they are coming from the pulse generator. So in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. But given that you have 2 of them, I asked what color your other wires are, so we can try to figure out if perhaps the 2 blue and whites are the ones that are going to go in here, that are going to go to the AC side of your voltage regulator, and that maybe a different color wire, maybe your the wire for your pulsar is pure blue, right? So a lot of times I can't answer your questions unless you answer some of my questions to help me figure out exactly what you're up to. I've worked on enough of these that, you know, given 30 seconds, I can look at all these hacked up harnesses and figure out what signals I want and don't want, and what I want to think about and what I don't want to think about, right? I mean, I walk right up to these and, you know, it takes me a minute to figure out pulsar, ground, AC for the stator, AC for the regulator. Even walking up to these wires didn't take a minute but to look at them and say, oh, look, blue and white, stator, ground, and I looked at the yellow and I said power for the this CDI unit. It's what's up here, the pulsar. What wires do I have here? Once again, blue and white and ground. You you kind of get used to them. It takes a little while to work on this stuff enough, but then you're there. So anyway, I hope this helped for anyone trying to wire a pit bike, whether it says speed defies gravity or whoever made it, Coleman or whatever name they stamped on the side of your pit bike. They're all basically the same. Not that difficult to wire. Piece of cake. In this case, this is speed defies gravity. It had a 110 on it. I put the 125 Lifan. I've been very happy with it. The only thing I would do with this bike, considering my size, is I would probably go with the longer arm to get this tire a little further out back, because if I'm not careful, it's very easy for this thing to kind of dump me right on my ass. So or my older son was riding it and he got dumped on his ass. So you gotta be, you know, if you're long and top heavy, you could get blown off the back. So I would recommend, or I want to, extend the swing arm. Extending the swing arm will also give me a little more travel and make the bike a little more fun for me, I think. So I think that's all I have to tell you about this. When I did put the Lifan engine on it, there's some little things that kind of, like, this needs to get bent so I can screw it in here, right? So the exhaust had to be kind of tweaked a little bit to get it to mount on there. You know, there was little things like that, but generally speaking, the engine swap was really pretty easy. So if anybody wants to do this, the 125, the 110 has enough power to haul me around. I weigh about 190 pounds, 195, depending on how much Thanksgiving I eat. So the 125, and I think there's an extra valve in there. I think it's got 3 intakes, or 2 intakes and 1 exhaust, or maybe it's a double set of valves for each. I'm not positive. I never tore the engine apart. But this engine is plenty perky. It was perky enough with the 110. Now it's really perky, like, let's go out and run perky. So there you go. Once again, any other questions, please ask. But remember, I might have to ask a question and get an answer before I can answer your question. For these things here also, you can buy the button. See the button right down. You get the wire harness, you get the CDI unit, you get the coil, you get the whole thing in one unit, and they're only about $16. So I wouldn't really mess around too much with a wiring harness if somebody screws it all up on you. Once again, given that for like $16, and then, I mean, it's obvious where everything goes, and if you need help, I have some videos up on that. And then down here, you just match the wires, you know, and you leave the white and the yellow off to be on their own, unless you have a 12-volt system that you're trying to charge the battery on. So, piece of cake, really plug and play. Anyway, any more questions on these, please ask. Folks, I really want you to keep your feet down, keep your head up, and please get out there and enjoy all your days. Bye now, folks.